I'm the only Neki Mohan in the world. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
I must be special. I must be special. There's not another one. That's what I tell myself. Like my co-anchor used to say, she's the greatest thing ever. Just ask her.
I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Neki Mohan. If you're from the South Florida area, you probably already know her. She anchored a morning show in Miami for more than 10 years with her co-anchor, Todd Tongen.
I sat next to my co-anchor for 9 hours a week for 11 years. I knew everything about him. I watched his kids grow up. He watched my kid grow up. We gained weight, lost weight together because we both like to eat. We were like a brother and sister.
Tragically, in 2019, Todd Tongen took his own life.
We take everything personally in this business to create a career for ourselves, but it cannot be your only identity. Mm-hmm. And when his kids asked me, my God, Neki, if he was so unhappy, why didn't he just quit? A light bulb went off. I don't know, I just quit. I'm not afraid of being broke, but I was afraid of being broken. And my co-anchor was broken.
So last year, in the middle of a pandemic, Neki decided it was time for her to make a big change. She left her job and posted a pretty candid video on social media explaining some of the reasons why. Here's part of it.
And you're probably wondering, why did Neki leave Local 10? Who leaves their job in the middle of a pandemic? Well, someone who realizes it's time to go in another direction, a direction where they would find growth. I have been working weekends at Local 10 for 16 years and never had a promotion. And after my co-anchor of 10 of those years took his own life last year because of circumstances in and around his life, which most certainly included work, I realized that if you don't seize the life you want to live, who's going to do it for you?
Pay attention, because in our conversation, Neki shares wisdom earned through experiences from growing up in Trinidad and Tobago to working her way through the TV news industry as a woman and as a mother. She says she's always been the CEO of Neki Mohan, Inc., but now she's an actual CEO of her own media and consulting company.
The president met with congressional leaders. Doctors will start implanting the devices. And you heard that warning from the Coast Guard tonight. For now, we're live in Orlando. For now, we're live in Dallas. We're live in Boston tonight. Caitlin McCulley, 7 News 19.
I'm Caitlin McCulley. I left my job as a TV news reporter in a pandemic to try to find a better way to share stories that matter, no BS. Thanks for listening to Outlet Podcast. You can download new episodes each week. Here's Neki Mohan. Well, thank you for taking time to chat with me. I know you've got a lot going on. So
I'm trying.
Yeah. So what does the day-to-day look like for you these days?
You know, it depends on a lot of different things. It's, when you leave, when I left television, I immediately was like, I'm going to do consulting. I'm going to do whatever projects come my way. And thankfully a lot did. Mm-hmm. So I do some television. I recently just did a pilot with Callahan Walsh for Missing Girls, which I broke a story in 2017 about a missing girl here from South Florida that was trafficked, that is still missing. And he's launching this after his father's America's Most Wanted, a similar thing where people are out there looking for these girls and looking for these predators and just being aware of the situation, which totally fell in line with what I did as a journalist, which was highlighting stories that affect disadvantaged youth, especially young women. I'm very passionate about that. So that's exciting. But, day to day, I had to replace my paycheck, right?
Right.
So, so many people need media consultants. They don't know from the latest things, setting up their social media to how to write a press release to how to do an interview. So I'm getting a lot of that consulting work. A lot of what I do, I can't do in public anymore because it's private. And it's, to help people out. But the things that I can publish or I can publicize, I put on my social media. That's my television station now, my Instagram and my Facebook. And it's been amazing. And I encourage all young reporters out there, do not neglect your social media. Own your narrative. I also work with a public speaking company. We help people tell their stories in the same way we did as reporters, right? Because how many times you've got to show up on a scene and say, you really need to be part of this story because it's about you and people need to hear your side of this story because it's going to be out there. So own your narrative, be involved in it, and here are ways it will help you. Because I never tried to convince anybody to talk to me in a story if it was going to hurt them, right?
Right.
Because so many times we do crime stories and I don't want to do a story where this person's retaliated. I would feel awful. you know? So even in the same way I use as a reporter on the street saying, hey, this is why you should tell me your story, I pivoted in the corporate world to say, what do you want the world to know about you and about what you do, why they should invest in your product, your brand, your services, because that's the most important thing people buy into, your why.
And so you've spent your career 3 decades telling
decades.
other people's stories. Has the shift to tell your own story been different than you expected, or how did that come about?
Terrifying. It's terrifying. I mean, I know everyone saw like my Facebook video, my Instagram video. I felt the only reason I did that video was because I have a huge, my weekend show had a huge following here in South Florida, an organic following. And I needed to give them an explanation of why I was moving on, because I didn't want to be stopped every 5 minutes in the street. Why are you not on TV anymore? Why are you not on TV anymore? My kid at school, why'd your mom not on TV anymore? And you know, I experienced some of that after my co-anchor died. Because people did, I was the face of that loss for a lot of people. They didn't know his family. They didn't know his wife. And I said, you know what? I just need to put something out there so I don't get the emails. I don't get the calls. I don't have, because I always responded to emails and responded to my viewers because I was so thankful and grateful to them that I said, let me put something out there to let them know what I'm doing, how I'm moving on. And it being that authenticity really did, I think it helped my viewers, because so many times you leave your television job and you don't want to piss off the next boss, right? Or the next opportunity, because in TV, we don't talk about what goes on behind the scenes and the different challenges that we face. And so many anchors in major markets reached out to me on social media and said, boy, do I wish I could tell my story. Thank you for speaking out for us and on the challenges of this industry. And especially as women, we put off dating, we put off childbearing, we give up everything to make it in this business. I'm fortunate I had one child, you know, she's 13 years old, and I wanted to be the kind of mother that she looked up to. And that was most important to me and everything that I do.
So for people listening to this who haven't followed your personal story, your co-anchor passed away, took his own life in the summer of last year. How, and in your video, you address some of this, that it caused you to reevaluate the importance of seizing every opportunity and taking control of your life, because if you're not doing that for yourself and creating the life that you want, who's going to do it for you? And I thought those words were really powerful. How did that experience play into your decision to leave and go on this new journey?
Yeah, it was June of 2019. And in full disclosure, because I'm a full disclosure kind of person, I knew in this business when I got in 1992 at ABC News in Washington and was delivering rundowns to all the offices, I saw a bunch of women at the back of the offices that weren't on TV anymore. What did they do? You know, what did they do? And, you know, the folks that I worked with in the mailroom would say, oh, yeah, I don't know. We don't know. You know, they may be doing radio. You know, it's like at one point in time, you're not going to be the flavor anymore. You know, so I knew from 1992 when I left University of Maryland, put away some money, purchase a house, do, you know, everything you could while this industry was good for you to build your wealth. Because my parents are immigrants. We didn't grow up with very much. I, you know, made sandwiches in college for an hour to get a free sandwich. I was struggling, but I wanted my legacy to be what I left for my family. Going through this business, though, I loved being a reporter. I always knew I would work in my life. I'd have to earn my own money. But from day one, I was just in love with my job. I worked 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I had a wonderful round. I went from DC, ABC News to WUSA as a reporter trainee. Then I jumped in a car and drove to Jackson, Mississippi, worked as a reporter and
like, let's go.
Oh my goodness, full-fledged. Got to Miami, was like amazing opportunity in Miami. Then I took a chance and left Miami, went to LA, and I was there freelancing for like 2 years. And I was like, oh my God, I need a full-time job again. Got a great opportunity to go to Cleveland, Ohio. You know, 17-year-old LeBron was my neighbor upstairs. Yeah, I know, right? And so I've had like an amazing run, right? I had the greatest opportunity to come back to South Florida in 2004. And, you know, it's a very competitive market here. News never stops. I was like Hurricane Queen, traveling through the Caribbean, covering my Caribbean. I grew up in Trinidad, and it was amazing. I had amazing following here in South Florida, did amazing stories, went to the Oscars a couple times because we have folks here that made movies that were up for Oscars, that won an Oscar. Moonlight was made in our inner city here, and we told incredible stories. But as I ascended as a reporter, when I became a mother, I felt like I almost became less valuable in the workplace. Opportunities changed. I couldn't travel as much anymore. I couldn't be available to them as much anymore. I sometimes had to take my toddler on stories because I worked Saturday and Sunday mornings. I was put on that Saturday and Sunday morning show because, I was kind of taken off the weekend evenings. And I was put on the Saturday and Sunday morning show. And I think, secretly, they probably hoped I had left because, it's like, you're either in the mix or you're not in the mix in a newsroom, in the corporate ladder. And every corporate environment can relate to this. The attorney that's working, that's billing 60, 70 hours a week versus the mom that can now only bill 50. I grabbed that opportunity to work weekend mornings. Most morning shifts are great for moms, and we built, my co-anchor and I was teamed with a great guy, Todd Tongen, great creative feature reporter, that did an amazing job. And I just knew personality wise, we were as different as can be. I'm from the Caribbean, he's from Minnesota, but clicked. And we said, nobody paid attention to the show. Our producers were right out of college. We were training them as we went, but we said, let's make this a real community show. And we would bring in guests. What do people want to do on the weekends? They want to find out where to eat, where to go. Parents want to know, how do I wear my kids out for free today? And in that, because the station has an amazing news team, we put in great news. We had, and once the station, the show really started to grow, the station really did put an investment in it. We had 3 live reporters. How many morning shows have that? Miami news never stops. Fidel Castro died on the weekend. Jose Fernandez died on the weekend. The Pulse nightclub shooting happened on the weekend. We were on top of coverage. But most importantly, we brought a real South Florida flavor to the show because he had been here for 30 years. And I'm everything that's South Florida, child of immigrants, diverse. And our team was really diverse. And we had a really great morning show. But our personal lives suffered. You can't work Saturday and Sunday morning for over a decade, which I did. And it's like, you can't go out on a Friday night. If I did an event on a Saturday night, I'd be exhausted the next morning. Sometimes I just came in with the same hair and makeup.
Right.
And it just, I fell asleep at the wheel a couple times going home. Wow. People don't know these things. I drove my car into my garage and left it running one time for 4 hours. If those connections were open to the rest of my house, I'd be dead,
And we were robbed. And sorry to interrupt you, but people hear morning show, and I don't think they understand wake up times.
You are correct.
1 a.m., 2 a.m.
Yeah.
What did that look like for you?
Okay, so in the beginning of my career, when I was young and cared, could really, there's my dog. Hey, Roman.
I might say hello too.
When in the beginning of my career, I would get up at I could afford to get up at 2, but listen, I rolled out of bed and rolled into work. There are some days I started that show without makeup. It really is. I mean,
put it on in the commercial horrible. Break. Magically, you have lashes after break 1 or 2.
I would get better looking as the morning went on. No question. In fact, viewers would call me out on that, and I would address it. I'd say it's 5 a.m. I don't have on makeup. Do you have on makeup?
Right.
What are you wearing? If you clap back about my outfit.
Right.
But we brought authenticity, and but it was brutal on your life. Our show was 4.5 hours long. 4.5 hours long.
Wow.
I sat next to my co-anchor for 9 hours a week for 11 years. I knew everything about him. I watched his kids grow up. He watched my kid grow up. We gained weight, lost weight together because we both like to eat. We were like a brother and sister. I mean, it was something like, if you have siblings, you know how crazy things get. He would leave his donut on the news set and go to the bathroom, and I would lick his donut so he couldn't eat it when he came back. That's how close.
Classic brother sister.
You gotta be really close to people. But he was so talented, and there was so much more that he could do, and he was scared to do because you have a family, you want a steady income, and working the weekends. We had 2 days off a week. You could be there with your family those 2 days. But he loved doing the weekend morning show because we really got to be ourselves. But during that time, we both lost our parents. We both lost our moms, and it just, his kids were growing up, and it was like you had to juggle family time with work time, and we really needed more opportunities. And, it's like we felt we were valuable enough. We brought a #1 show. We brought in a lot of money that maybe we were both asking for other opportunities constantly, consistently. And in their eyes, it wasn't to their advantage to do that.
What other opportunities did you want?
You Monday through Friday for sure, anchoring a Monday through Friday show, there were so many other opportunities, but they, how do newsrooms make money? They keep using the same resources and using it over and over again to generate more commercial time and more income. I'm very knowledgeable about this business. I worked in radio sales. I've had a lot of other jobs because I've always had to side hustle. When I was working for $22,000 in Jackson, Mississippi, the student loan still needed to be paid. The car insurance needed to be paid. I'm always hustle. And I always tell young people, understand how your boss makes money, and then you will be valuable. And, you have to do at least 2 jobs in a newsroom now to stay relevant. I was an anchor. I was a reporter. I did specials. I did, I have so many different things. But at the point, like our main anchor left, she'd been there for 16 years, and it was like, oh, wow, how about me getting a shot Monday through Friday? I'm your most known anchor. I have the highest ratings in the team. Nope. They just wanted to keep their moneymaker going. And no matter how many times he or I asked for an opportunity, we were shot down because it didn't work for them. So I often said to him, let's do our own thing. There's a team in West Palm. They left and created their own show. And now they have a 9 o'clock spot back on the station owning their own show. And if you're in the market, and we were well known in the market because we were here when there were 3 networks, not 200 million now on the streaming, all the things. So people knew us.
Right.
And that's really hard to do in these days, for people to know and establish and trust. We're people in the community. We have kids that do Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, go to schools. They know us. They come up and talk to us in Costco and grocery stores, and I really thought we really wanted them to use that opportunity to really allow us to create something and give us a chance to have a family life. So I say all that to say that at some point in time, he gave up, and combined with the issues he had with his job, the personal issues he had with his family, and just how he felt about himself, because if you can't invest your whole identity into, I'm the person on TV,
right?
You can't. Lisa Guerrero, who is now, I believe, on Inside Edition or one of those shows, she talked about when she got booted off a very visible Monday Night Football position, she felt like taking her own life. We put so much, people say, oh, don't take it personally. We take everything personally in this business to create a career for ourselves. But it cannot be your only identity. And when his kids asked me, my God, Neki, if he was so unhappy, why didn't he just quit? A light bulb went off. I don't know, I just quit. Because as much as I loved my staff and I loved my work, I had to choose between work and family. And I had to get out of there before they made me feel like I couldn't do anything else. Because I think that's how he felt. And he felt stuck. And I didn't, stuck is only a situation that's temporary while you're figuring out what's next. There's no such thing as stuck. And as a girl that emigrated from the Caribbean, whose mothers cleaned houses for a living, I knew that I'd already tackled the tough stuff in life. And that moving on would just be a short process, because now I was known, I had the contacts, but I needed to leave while I still had the energy and they hadn't beat me down. So I went to therapy. I encourage therapy for everybody, every newsroom, especially when we cover mass shootings and tragedies every week. We had a plane fall out of the sky out of this recently and kill a teacher and her son driving in traffic this week. If you're the reporter on that scene that then has to knock on every single door to talk to that family, you're going to take it home with you.
Yes.
First of all, somebody's going to call you a vulture, which is which is just breaks your heart, because that's not who you want to be, but that's who they think we are. Or fake news. The last administration got us branded with fake news. I've never seen people coming up to the live trucks and banging. People rocked our live truck.
It wears on you. It wears on you.
Every day. None of us get into this business. We all know we want to create a career where we love telling stories and we love journalism. We may never make it to the network. We may never make it where everybody knows us, but we love what we do every day. So for people to insult you and the toll of everything, and then to go into newsrooms where you never have weekends off, you never have holidays off, how many weddings have you missed? How many milestones in your, and then you ask yourself, is it worth it? And when my co-anchor took his own life, to me, it wasn't worth it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like also you had already learned how to shift and to adapt and to maybe not put so much of your identity into one job. But I wonder, as you transition out of it, did that change, or did you find that you really didn't put your identity in your work?
Well, my identity is intact because I'm still doing so much work. And that's what I want the young people to watch this to understand. I still advocate for young women. I'm on a board of several schools, and I work for a scholarship fund. I'm a mentor in the Broward County schools. That hasn't changed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing voiceover work. I do a lot of healthcare space work. In COVID, a lot of hospitals needed ways to get their messages out and to connect with their patients. So who are they going to hire to do a Facebook Live for an hour? A reporter that's used to being live,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had built those relationships through I used to do everything for free. When I didn't have a kid, I emceed Black History Month events, Women's Day events at churches. But these were all things that were close to my heart. I'm not going to say I just did it at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I think connecting with your community as a reporter is so important. That's the way you get contacts. That's the way you do stories that are relevant. That's the way you enterprise different stories. Is you hear from real people, you build trust, and they pick up the phone and call you. Well, all those people who used to pick up the phone and call me to do free shit, they're, excuse my French, they're paying me now. I mean, they're paying me now because, quite frankly, I cannot afford to work for free.
Right.
But I am busy. Just today alone, I was on a call with someone talking about how do they rebrand their business, or how do they help their spokesperson, develop their message. Yesterday I was doing a video with a local hospital because they advertise a very prized fellowship, but no one's coming to visit because of COVID. So they wanted to do a virtual visit. I've done a lot of virtual galas, and those are all opportunities that I created with relationships, right? Relationships that are important. I still do things for free for people who can't afford to pay because they're young people that I work with or whatever. But I don't do things with thinking money in mind. I do things with message and integrity, but I let people know, like, hey, listen, I'm my own company now, and putting out that Facebook video, and they look at, what I want young reporters to also do, and I know a lot of you guys are MMJing, or a lot of them are MMJing out there, develop your editing skills, develop your Dropbox skills. Those are things that translate in the corporate world to work for in-house media teams, in-house social media teams. If you're not doing that, you're missing an opportunity, because being on TV is the best platform to, whatever it is you're interested in. Maybe you're interested in environment. Maybe you're interested in animals. There's an animal shelter talking to me about the same Adopt a Pet segment I used to do on the show, about doing that for them on their Facebook page.
Did you find that when you put out that video on social media, that transparency and realness resonated with your community and the people you had already built relationships, and that
100%
as a result?
100%.
Yeah.
And I want this too for anchors. There's a difference between an anchor and a newsreader. Don't be afraid to bring yourself to your shows. You're the only thing. They're the only reason they're watching. They could get that information on their phone now. Mm-hmm. I would read stories, and this became out of I told you, the only thing that I'm anti-bullshit, right?
Right.
So you would read a health story on the air. Coffee will kill you drinking too many cups. And I would say,
and then the next one's like, actually, it's great.
According to this health report, people, coffee is going to kill you. I'd say, but tune in next week because it'll probably save your life.
Right.
Thanks so much for watching. And I would say that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you gain that confidence as a person, as a woman, as a mom, as a consumer, and then you're a newscaster. Don't bullshit the people at home. They're gathering information too. They tune in to watch you. So bring you to every newscast. It's really important. And I'm not just talking about all this opinionated stuff we see every day, but I'm talking about, as a journalist, wrap your brain around the education of it all. Engage with your community to find out how the stuff you're doing connects with them. And don't be afraid to be part of conversations. Everything's virtual right now. If the county invites you to be part of an MLK conversation or to talk about a story you did, do it. And I think community relations departments at television stations, we had a very good one at my last station. have relationships in the community, have viewer panels. You want to talk about Black Lives Matters? Bring in the head of all the local organizations in the station and have them have an open, private conversation with the reporters and the producers and the management. So many
Talk about
times,
that.
management wants us to go out there and do stuff they would not do. I remember one of my 10 TV stations taking a producer out on a ride along, and they do that every now and again at certain companies, but it's always the dead day, right? And they go, "Oh, her life is so easy.
Oh, it's fine."
She had dinner, she had a snack, But no, on one of those days, that a producer got sent out with me, and a little girl had been hit and killed in front of her house, run over by a bad driver, and the mom is in the street screaming, "We arrive," over the body of her child. I grabbed that producer. I said, "Grab the mic. Let's go interview the mother. How does she feel?" Man, that girl locked the doors, sat in the car, and bawled her eyes out and said, "Neki, I will never ask you to do that again."
She really had no idea.
No idea what we see in the streets. No idea. I have coined a term and I need to trademark it, but I have post-traumatic news disorder. Sometimes my family members have to check me, I'll be driving and they're like, "Why are you driving like you're racing to a scene?" Or, I had 2 truck accidents. One, the truck flipped. So every time anybody stops suddenly, I jump like this. If I'm walking with my kid in a parking lot, I hold her hand really tightly. She always says, "Mom, you're squeezing me too tight." Why? Because I've been to a million scenes where a kid has been run over. I always, before I go into anywhere, figure out what's all the possible things that could happen here and how can I protect myself from it? Convenience stores.
I know. I'm in a room. I remember, before the pandemic, you go to a spin class or a workout class, and I'm looking at the exits. I'm like, what would happen if a mass shooter came in here, and how would you get out? I mean, now that's becoming more, unfortunately, people are thinking about that kind of thing more, but I can totally relate to that, where you have these worst case scenario scenes that play out as a result of what we've seen.
Yes. No. It's a real thing. And newsrooms need to have open conversations among their teams that let reporters emote and let producers, because I started as a producer behind the scenes. I wanted to be a field producer. I don't like doing hair and makeup. It's I hate it. But when I was at the network, they have field producers. In local news, they don't. So when I got to a local news station and did my reporter fellowship, I thought, boy, I like to be out there getting the story, that I'm going to have to become a reporter. And I had to cut my hair. I think other reporter lent me money to get a haircut, and I made of tape. And that's how I started my reporting career. But the disconnect between the people that are in the field and the people that are in the station is larger than ever. And I think the state newsrooms, especially in all these stations with MMJs can't do certain stories. You're putting their life at risk. We had MMJs in one of my markets drive into ditches, get into car accidents, pull the gas pump, every time. Even as an anchor on the desk, I would say, okay, we didn't have MMJs at my station, but at the time, but I would say, okay, let that reporter shoot a look live so she has enough time to get set up for that next street. You don't need that. We don't need that live shot. That the client doesn't, the customer, the person viewing does not know that's a look live. They can't tell the difference. Give your reporter time. Think of their safety. Think of their mental health. I had one reporter that said to me, she said, I really have a hard time doing features. I'd like to get better, but I need time to practice. So if we moved her from a breaking news story to a food giveaway or free bikes at the Boys and Girls Club for Christmas, I would say, give her that opportunity. She wants to develop that part of her tape and that part of her personality, but give her time. Don't only say, "Oh, wow, she sucks at doing that. We'll never let her do that again." I mean, I hear producers say things behind the scenes that are so get to know your team. Right. If newsrooms met on a personal level more, not just drinking on happy hour, because you know what, the anchors with the kids and stuff, we can't do that. We got to go home to our kids. But created a safe space in a newsroom to really get to know each other. And again, I'm never going to call a producer because I was a producer and say, "I'm sorry, I can't make the slot." I'm going to say, "Listen, I need to get this. How about if I send you back a look live OSOT and you can plug your hole? It would really give me an opportunity to go knock on a couple more doors, or it would really give me an opportunity to work on getting that interview, because I think for the greater good and the greater news gathering of the station, that would help me." Or if producers say, "Hey, Like I used to have a nightside reporter that would take over for me dayside. He would stop and get coffee and lunch before he ever came to relieve me, and walk up right as we were packing up for me, make us late leaving to go home. And I'd say, get that nightside reporter out here earlier so we can transition. He can maybe even help me gather a few new elements. And then his night is easier because once the sun goes down, the story's done, and then he can go to his 3-hour dinner.
Right. Right.
You know, so it's just nutritionists need to understand the people that are working for them and ways they can make their life better. And listen, if somebody makes your life better, you're going to perform better.
Yes. And that's the point that I think gets lost amazingly so many times. If your life is better, if you feel respected and you feel valued for what you bring to the table, you're going to perform way better. Your productivity everything is going to be better. And I feel like that definitely gets lost.
Yeah. And I think that I went on a fellowship, and I want everybody to Google this fellowship. And if you can go on it, go on it. Because for a while when I was freelancing, I didn't have any money, but it didn't mean I didn't have to travel. I took a couple Pointer fellowships. I did RTNDF. We did radio, the RIAS fellowship, which is a trip to Germany. And I went on a trip to Germany right after 9/11. Everybody's like, are you traveling after 9/11? I'm like, that's the safest time to travel. So I remember going to Germany with 20 journalists, some which are national journalists, and Miguel Marquez from CNN and a bunch of other people on this fellowship. And journalists are the most fun, fascinated, interesting people ever to travel with. I mean, think of like on a scene when nothing's going on and everybody's just shooting the crap.
Right.
Journalists are just curious people. So we have so many different interests, so many different skill sets. I have friends that speak 8 languages, but they wanted to be a reporter. I have friends that went and taught for a while, and then they said, no, I want to be a reporter. So there's so much value to be learned from each other. Mm-hmm. And it's just the most never a dull day. Any scene talking to a bunch of other reporters is never a dull day. And that's what I miss. Yeah, I have to go out of my I have a community. I meet with my girls like every once in a while. We go out to brunch, and just wonderful, fascinating people that will travel at a drop of a hat. Yeah. When I had a wedding that canceled once, that's only one of them. There's a few of them because it's hard to date in this business. But I called my girlfriend. I said, "Hey, I still have the honeymoon. You want to go?" That's who I went with.
That's the topic of a movie that just came out on Netflix, except she takes her dad or something.
Yeah, no, that was a Sex and the City episode. You know, I think they did that in Sex and the City. But it's just that journalists are some of the most curious, fun-loving, interesting people. And we do girls' trips. And because we care about the world, we're interested in everything, we're passionate people. And that's why I want to let the reporters know that, listen, if you're in a situation, maybe personally, it isn't working out for you, maybe you have to take care of your parents or something like that. Use the downtime if you step out, or if you have maybe you have an easy schedule. I have one friend that only works weekends right now and has Monday through Friday. Figure out something else to grow in your skill set. Mm-hmm. A real estate license, computer literacy, social media marketing, because you may need it one day. And who says I can't go back and do television? Maybe they'll get mad at me because I'm constantly talking about the insides of the business that nobody talks about. I don't care. I live one life. But what I want to say is that your skills are valuable, you're intelligent, you're aggressive, you're motivated, and that translates into success in any industry.
What are you curious about now?
Oh, so much. So much. I want to figure out, how do I build my brand, make it successful in developing the things that I care about. I still care a lot about storytelling. I'd love to do a series I like to do a streaming series on my Caribbean culture. You know, I'm so excited that our vice president has Caribbean roots, because, you know, there's so many stories in my culture in this country that people don't know, you know, how hard we hustle. I mean, even when we're talking about all this stuff about Asian Americans now and the backlash they're coming under, and why they can be so successful from one generation to the next, we give up everything for our children. For instance, there's a woman, I can't even remember her name. When I was in New York and I first moved to New York, you know, they throw these parties in Brooklyn, these Caribbean parties, DJs from the islands, and we all go. Outside of this party would be a woman selling fried chicken sandwiches. And I remember I loved her fried chicken sandwiches. Curious me goes and starts talking to her. Like, I saw her daughter with her one time. And I said, why are you selling? Well, what are you guys up to? Like, who are you? And she was like, oh yeah, I work on Wall Street, but selling these fried chicken sandwiches on the weekends at these parties, I make thousands of dollars to help my daughter who's going to Columbia.
Wow.
So you had a Wall Street money woman selling fried chicken sandwiches at these Caribbean parties on the weekend to put her daughter through Colombia.
Figuring it
That's
out.
why we succeed in one generation. I have a friend, he was an IT rep on the oil rigs in the Caribbean. He used to come to Miami for all those DJ parties, the Winter Music Conference, Ultra. And I was like, oh my God, why do you want to be a DJ? Get a real job. Well, he does have a real job. He's one of the 3 guys in Major Lazer. Do you know that DJ company? Do you know that DJ? That's pretty big.
Yeah.
That's pretty big. So it's just like our dreams, our opportunities, as immigrants, we are willing to work around the clock to get things done and get the opportunities here in America, which is a great country, because we don't get those opportunities in our country, and there's just even the difference between the conversations between working in Jackson, Mississippi. That was my civil rights education. My parents, people look at me and they say, oh, you're Black. Yeah, I'm Black. I'm mixed race from the Caribbean, African, Indian, Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
But when I came to this country, I had to respect the journey African Americans had gone through for the opportunities that I benefit from.
Right.
I talked to the neighbors that picked Medgar Evers up on the floor the night he was shot. They were still living in that house when I was in Jackson, Mississippi, when they were filming The Ghost of Mississippi, which is about his murder. That to me was my American education, working in Jackson, working in Cleveland, working in LA. Those are, you look at ABC, they have Soul of a Nation. Those stories are so important. Those stories are there's so many other opportunities to tell stories. And the thing is that I got to figure out how to do that, yet still pay the bills every month. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I get all these opportunities to do stuff in hospital systems and to, I produce, and I told you I'm a freelance producer for a broadcast. I don't know if they want me talking about them, but out of Orlando that you used in some of your smaller markets. Mm-hmm. So it's so funny now that I'm on the producer on all these stories, because here in South Florida, they're like, aren't you the anchor? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I did a few jobs ago. Now I'm my own producer. And there's no shame in my game. I mean, I just, people know who I am, because
and who you are.
Most importantly, I know who I am, and I know that I'm going to work hard. I'm going to have integrity, and I'm just going to enjoy my life. I'm turning 50 this year, God's sake. So it's just, life expectancy has gotten better for some people, but, where I balance. And I also have done serious research into life expectancy, because I have a friend who's everyone in her family makes it in the Guinness Book of World Records. It's about genetics. So there's actually a tool to figure out how long you're likely to live biologically. And I'll probably make it to maybe 80 if I'm lucky. So that's only 30 more years left. So I'm going to live it up.
You better. Sounds like you already are.
I know. It's listen, if I have to go back to eating oodles and noodles like I did in college, I'm not afraid to do it, because I'm not afraid of being broke, but I was afraid of being broken. Wow. And my co-anchor was broken.
Wow.
And that's really, really, really what sticks out with me. He said to me 3 days before his death, he just called me out of the blue. We would call to shoot stories back and forth of our day, because you can't go home and tell your spouse everything we deal with every day, because they get sick of it. But as reporters, we'll go back and forth all day because we can relate. He said he just laughed, and he's always would call me and say, I love you, you're the best. And I was like, what are you drinking? Because normally he would get those. He'd dial me when he was having a few glasses of wine. He said, no, I'm just driving home. He goes, don't stop saying the things I'm too afraid to say. And at the time, I just basically thought, okay, somebody at the station pissed you off. Tell me who, and I'll start butt dialing them right now and yell at them, because he really was a sensitive human being. I'm a fighter. That's, most people are like, I don't want to mess with crazy girl today, but I would fight for both of us. And he would call and needle me into fighting for us. A lot of times he would get me all riled up and say, go get him. But that day he just said, don't stop saying the things I'm too afraid to say. No, I don't need you to call anybody. Just remember that. And at the time it didn't resonate. Mm-hmm. I didn't think in a million years. Like, people always go, did you know that's what he was going to do? I was like, absolutely not. I would have been at his house.
Of course.
But now in hindsight, it sticks with me. It really does stick with me.
What do you think are some of those things that he was too afraid to say?
That we feel old and that we can feel old and irrelevant. That, he used to always say that the reason that he was so upset about work was he used to be in love with this job. And I think we could all like connect with that. And that it's like a broken affair. Like it just left him. Like he was in love with the work he did. And you can see that work on YouTube. He used to drive a taxi and do these feature stories. And something that he enterprised, it was after the Taxi Cab Diaries from HBO was modeled about that. He had Peter Jennings in the cab. He had Joan Rivers in the cab. He had, you name it. Even I remember Eva Mendes, I ran into her on a red carpet and she said, "You're at the station with that guy with the cab. He's crazy." And then he went to covering shooting stories and, anchoring a shift that he always gave his best, but it took away his time from his family. So it just, there were a lot of different things in play. But even Jimmy Kimmel, I sat down with Jimmy Kimmel and he knew exactly who he was because of what a great feature person he was. So he had a mark to make on this world. And I wish he had more confidence in knowing that he could do it no matter whoever he worked for.
Do you feel like you're carrying some of that as you move on?
Yes. Every day I hear him I hear his voice. I mean, 11 years, 9 hours a week. There were a couple times when I made that Facebook video, I could hear his voice saying, "Get him, killer, get him, girl, let him know. Don't stop saying what I'm too afraid to say," And, but even in other industries, you see people that are just, their whole identity is that I drive this car or I have this house. Well, I grew up really poor with no car. So the fact that I have a house and a car now is amazing. It's not part of my identity. And I think that my work now, my real legacy is the work I do in helping young women transcend that poverty line. People that grow up here in this country, but cannot transcend the poverty line that an immigrant can in one generation. There's a reason. And it's generational trauma and it's access and it's resources. So I continue to do that work with an organization called Women of Tomorrow. We're in Detroit, Philadelphia, and Miami. And we're expanding all the time. I'm on the board of a school for girls called PACE here in Florida, where we help young people transition. Because I got sick of going to juvie court and seeing the handcuffs get smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
5-year-olds with a zip tie in court?
Like,
really?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've been to a few courtrooms and like, if this person had just gotten one piece of advice or one message, they wouldn't be here. And if you're a family of privilege, my daughter struggled in this pandemic. And as her mother, I can call and get help. Right. I can, get a counselor. I can, team up with the teachers at school to figure out what she's doing because I have flexibility in my work. How many people did not have flexibility in their work in this pandemic? And who were they? The grocery store workers, people who can't afford to be without a paycheck, So it just, that's my legacy. Helping people, helping balance the inequity, even if just in my community, even if just in the school that I mentor.
That's so important. Thank you, Neki. Is there anything else that you wanted to get across that I didn't touch on?
I just want to say to listeners of your podcast, especially if there were other reporters, just be encouraged, be kind, be good at what you do. You're there for a reason. You deserve to be there. And work on teamwork makes the dream work. Whether it be, I was pitching a story to producer at a station here locally last week, and now she's going to be my producer at healthcare because she moved on to a healthcare company. So it really is, as you're climbing, be a good person because it will always benefit you along the way, and be the CEO of your own destiny. That's who you can be. I used to get up every day and go, I'm the CEO of Neki Mohan, Inc. Even when I was working the worst shift at the crazy stations, I used to get up and say, I'm the CEO of my own destiny. And because it really is just a revenue stream and it can become just a revenue stream, but you should always be thinking of what do you want for your life? Because time does run out and this is not the only thing you can do. And if you're succeeding at it, good for you, but don't make it your whole identity.
I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been great to connect with you.
Thank you so much. And it's great to meet you. And isn't it amazing that we don't even barely know each other, but we have such a kindred connection?
Yeah, I know. I'm really glad to connect. And I'll be following your success and
follow my IG, my Facebook. I'm the only Neki Mohan in the world. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
I must be special. I must be special. There's not another one. That's what I tell myself. Like my co-anchor used to say, she's the greatest thing ever. Just ask her.